Good afternoon, all. Thank you so very much for tuning in via Zoom, or if you're watching on Facebook. Hello, my name is Malik Glee. I am the Senior Program Manager for the Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council, and I'm really excited for this evening's Entrepreneurial Series. The Entrepreneur Series, again, is looking to share, tools of entrepreneurship to the creatives in Prince George's County and wherever else you may be chiming in from. And tonight we have Morgan Davis of Distinctly Creative giving us some tips on social media strategy. I do ask that throughout the presentation, you insert your comments in the chat box. Morgan will get to the the questions toward the latter half of the presentation today. And I'm going to introduce Morgan and then give her the baton so we can get our full time in today. I know we have a great presentation. Entrepreneurship and the arts have been a large part of Morgan's life. At the age of 17, Morgan started her first plus-size clothing line, where she would sew custom pieces for women sizes 14 and up. From there, she has created a full-fledged catalyst into creativity and business development. Morgan currently provides custom and ready-to-wear clothing for sizes small to 6X, and over the past 7+ years has helped a variety of smaller and larger sized businesses with their visual branding, marketing, and business development goals, such as Google, the University of Maryland, George Mason University, and the National Trust of Historic Preservation. Morgan has had her work shown at a variety of events and venues across the DMV, like the Woodlawn and Pope Lee House, Lee's Flower Shop on U Street, and the DC Fashion Week. She has also spoken at various events and organizations like George Washington University, Impact Hub, and FHI 360 about her passion for Black creativity, entrepreneurship, and economic development. Outside of this, Morgan is also the founder and CEO of a Maryland-based company called Distinctly Creative, which focuses on helping Black creative entrepreneurs succeed personally and professionally through the use of business coaching and online business development services, events, and Black creative markets, and a Black creative marketplace, in Mount Rainier, Maryland. Morgan is a proud graduate of Howard University, where she received a BFA in design with a concentration in fashion. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Morgan. Just a reminder to all to mute yourselves and to please keep your comments in the chat box as they arrive. And I'm going to steer it now to Morgan.
Hi, everyone. How are you? It's always so weird hearing like my bio spoken out loud. But so thank you to all of you for joining this workshop. So as Malik mentioned, outside of being a fashion designer, I also have a tremendous amount of experience when it comes to helping smaller brands and larger entities with their marketing, visual branding, and overall business development needs. And so one of my favorite things to talk about is digital marketing. And in particular, I'll be focusing on, in this workshop, how to create a successful native social media marketing campaign. So whether you're using Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, whatever it may be, understanding how to create content that's not only attractive and pretty, but also helps with creating sales, further building a relationship with your customers, and so on and so forth. So let me share my screen so we can start. Okay. All right, so for today, I'm going to be breaking up everything into 3 parts. So when it comes to marketing, digital marketing and beyond, it's more than, again, like I mentioned, just having really nice pictures. It's also important that you're really understanding in part 1, who your target audience is. Part 2, understanding your brand voice and the visuals that accompany that are based upon who your target audience is. And then part 3, creating that overall native social media marketing plan. All right, so target audience. So your target audience at a very basic level, they are your ideal customers, clients, and or attendees if you're doing like events and things of that nature that really resonate with what you're offering. I know in a perfect world, we'd love for like everyone and their mother to be able to buy everything that we have. However, to be realistic, there's going to be a core grouping of people that are really going to love what you offer and are able to resonate it because it either fulfills a need, want, desire, problem, or it helps them continue a particular type of lifestyle or create that ideal lifestyle for them. Okay, so it's important that you understand who your target audience is, because the latter is that you're kind of just posting things, creating things, and kind of hoping for the best and hoping that people buy, and then you're confused and trying to figure out, why aren't people really resonating? Why aren't they returning? Why am I not creating that leverage that I'm looking to create so I can have, a long-standing business? And then at the core, understanding who your target audience is allows you to create more authentic relationships with your audience online and offline. All right, so because I'm a very visual person, I created kind of a graph of sorts that breaks up the different components of your target audience, which is a combination of the demographics, so the very basic general things like age range, genders, ethnicities, locations, incomes, and things of that nature. And then also more of the psychographics, so things like your favorite social media platforms, their favorite stores, hobbies, interests, who they find aspirational or inspirational. And then lastly, here at the bottom, it's focusing on their behaviors, their needs and wants, their attitudes, and then their problems. And so these last four squares, they are indicative based upon the demographics and the psychographics. That is not what I wanted to do. Okay. Okay, so when it comes to your target audience, I think a lot of times, especially as creatives, for those of you that are, say, like visual artists or performing artists or things of that nature, it can be a little harder to kind of figure out, what type of problem I'm solving, since you may see like, oh, I make really beautiful work and I just want everyone to enjoy it and receive it, which is where I mentioned, if you're not solving a particular problem, say like, people who, like if you're dealing with cars or other types of industries, when it comes to creative focus industries, you more than likely are more so focusing on a lifestyle. So either the types of work that you create, the clothing that you design, whatever it may be, allows people to be able to envision their lives in a certain way. So whether, let's say, if you're a abstract painter and use a lot of fluid movement in your work, and then with how you present yourself online, it's also very similar to the type of work that you create. The type of lifestyle you promote is something that's very free and flowing, and people who follow you are either already in that demographic of sorts, or they're people that would like to be within that space. So just kind of like, things to keep in mind. I know, again, especially as a creative focused venture, it can be a little bit harder to figure out what your need and the problem that you're solving. But a lot of it also at the end of the day is really thinking about, why you started your business. Since many times, with most of us, we start our businesses and ventures based upon our own problems that we have in our life, or our own ideal lifestyles and things of that nature. And so you take those components and break that apart to help better understand who you're trying to reach. Okay, so to give an example, going back to the diagram that I created. So for this example, we'll say that this is a target audience for a travel podcast. And that travel podcast is consists of two millennial aged Black women. And what they do is they talk about their traveling adventures and then also give tips and advice for those that are looking to travel, especially abroad. So going back to the diagram, we'll say that for their ages, since they are two Black millennial women, also trying to speak to other Black millennial women. So for the age range, we'll say about 25 to 34. Gender and ethnicity, Black women and femmes. For location, well, let's just say, they are based in the DMV. And so most of their audience, at least starting out right now, is going to be on the East Coast. So the DMV, New York, and potentially maybe Philly as well too. From a income and education level standpoint, and this is again also basing it off of who the two hosts are, most of their audience is probably going to be college grads with entry to mid-level jobs. And then when we get into the psychographics, so since these are folks that like to travel and are already currently doing a lot of traveling or are looking to do more traveling in the future, they are going to be people that are going to gravitate more towards more image-focused social media platforms, because that allows them to see other people that are living the lifestyle they would like to have, or they're using it themselves to document how they travel across the world. So with that being said, two platforms that may be of interest to them is Instagram, and then also Pinterest, more so since Pinterest is a great platform when it comes to getting ideas and inspiration when it comes to travel, DIY, and other creative focused things. And so also with this podcast, not only are they talking about traveling, but they're also talking about how people can travel affordably, and then also with a bit of a creative and fashion focused component to it as well. So with that being said, if these are folks that are in entry to mid-level jobs, they're trying to travel affordably, and they also, when it comes to shopping, in terms of clothing, are try to be affordable in that mindset too, they're going to gravitate towards stores that allow them to look fashion forward without having to spend a lot of money. Those would be places like ASOS, fast fashion stores like a Fashion Nova, thrift stores. And then also for this audience, we'll say that they also like to patronize businesses that are Black owned. So they may shop from somewhere like a Mess in a Bottle. So lastly, when it comes to hobbies and interests, so of course, this audience loves to travel. And then they may also like going to museums, music festivals, brunch, binge watching, things of that nature. And again, all of this information is coming from kind of dissecting, in this case, the two hosts of this podcast. And then also beyond that, which I'm going to talk about this a little bit later when we talk about market research, it's also kind of looking at other similar businesses, or in this case, podcasts that are trying to reach a similar audience. All right, so now that we've kind of like gone over this component here in the magenta, lastly, we'll focus on the behaviors, needs, attitudes, and problems. And so again, these last four things are based upon the information that we understand up here. And then these last four things will definitely help me, or rather in this case, the podcasters, understand how they can leverage their content in a way to reach these types of people. So when it comes to behaviors, so because again, these are folks that are trying to travel affordably and ideally, you know, as often as they possibly can, they're going to be using discount sites like Kayak or last minute discount blogs to look for trips. However, the problem that kind of creates is that because they're using sites like Kayak, or especially those last minute blogs where unless you have the money right now, you're probably going to miss out on that deal within the next week or couple of days. They don't know how they can still travel affordably and frequently without having to, you know, have this large amount of savings or, you know, constantly be on edge. That's kind of the problem they have. And then again, the attitude, because they have that mindset based on what they're doing right now, they assume that traveling, especially internationally, is something you can only do sparingly. So then their need is that they want to be able to find more budget-friendly options so they can travel more often. And so using all this information, going back to with the podcast and thinking about content, if this is my audience and I'm creating a podcast catered to these people, I'm going to make sure that I am creating segments or parts of my podcast that talk about affordable options, or especially affordable living accommodations and things of that nature, or budget airlines, or places that I can go to and frequent to allow me to live that particular lifestyle. And then also to go even deeper than that, this allows me to not only understand when it comes to like the content for the podcast, but of course, like with today, understand how to tailor my social media content to them. So creating content themes based upon this. And then even beyond that, it also helps me think even more so when it comes to my visual branding and my brand voice too. because there are certain colors and shapes and textures that I'm going to want to use to be able to further relate to these people in a more subconscious way. All right, so when it comes to target audience, so it's kind of like an umbrella. At the top, you have your overall box of people. That's kind of like that graph that I showed previously. And then underneath that, especially as you, for those of you that currently have businesses, you may notice that there are pockets of people within that overall umbrella that have maybe slightly different needs, but are still similar to that overall target audience. And for those of you that are just starting, it's something you'll kind of realize over time, but in the interim, you can start kind of mapping out particular profiles of people that you would like to reach out to within that large grouping of your audience. So with character profiles, many times what folks will typically do, and what I usually suggest for many of my clients, is that whether you're writing this down in a journal or if you're going to do this on your computer or phone or whatever it may be, is that you're almost kind of creating like social, like dating profiles, or like a Facebook profile, and you're giving these people names. So one profile in this case might be a Rachel, or it might be a Kevin, or it might be a Malik, or whatever it may be. And so with that, for people who need it, they may also want to add like a picture or whatever it may be to help them better visualize and make it more tangible when it comes to understanding these profiles. And also, in general, like you should have no more than about like 5. Anything beyond that is excessive. And at that point, you might kind of want to start back at the beginning in terms of thinking about your overall target audience. So going back to the example of the travel podcast. So we'll say that one of their character profiles is a Rachel. And so we'll say that Rachel is in their mid to late 20-something. They are single. They're an HBCU college grad. They are in a mid-level communications role. They live in DC and have roommates, because again, that whole affordability thing, and also given the income level they're at based upon the overall cost of living in that area. They, again, going back to being very big about also pursuing Black businesses, they like to try different Black-owned bars and restaurants on a frequent basis. And so then when it comes to their goals, like the overall target audience, they're trying to travel as often as possible. In this case, maybe it's about 3 countries or so every year. And so their problem, which is similar to the overall target audience of wanting to travel more frequently and affordably, however, their problem, in addition to that, it's not only are they trying to travel more affordably, but they're also trying to travel frequent accommodations and restaurants and things of that nature at their respective countries that they visit, that are not only safe havens for Black folks, but are also ideally Black owned. And so with that being said, from the podcast standpoint, how they can help a Rachel is that they'll create segments in their show that highlight go-to vacation spots and Black-owned hotels and attractions to frequent while they're there. And so then when they are marketing to a Rachel, so whether it's on your native social media page, digital ads, offline, whatever it may be, their marketing message for a Rachel will be that they are the go-to source for Black women looking to find budget-friendly travel options that keep us in mind. And so the reasoning, again, for these character profiles is it allows you to go even more in depth when you're trying to market to particular segments in your business in a way that is authentic. And it also makes sure that you're not muddling your messages to those particular groups. So again, no more than like 3 to 4 profiles is great. Anything beyond that is a bit too much. And overall, again, character profiles really help you with better understanding and assessing the needs of your customers in a way that makes it more personal. Okay, so going into part 2, we'll be talking about brand voice and visuals. So again, once you understand who your target audience is, It makes it easier for you to understand your brand voice. So how you are going to essentially be speaking to the people that are in your audience, especially in terms of social media and captions and things of that nature. Because of course, especially if you're selling a product, you want to do much more than just saying like, buy my product today. You want to explain why this product is so amazing and why your audience should be purchasing it for whatever reason. And then with visuals, again, too, depending upon your audience, there are certain color groups, typography, things of that nature that are going to better resonate with them over others. Okay, so again, when it comes to visual branding at the core, you want to be thinking about color, especially when we're talking about social media. You want to be thinking about color, text, and font, and then also your photos and videos. Since again, with social media, it's a very most, except for even Twitter too, but usually if you're using Instagram and Facebook, it's important that you are very intentional about the images that you create. They don't have to be like super high end quality and done by a professional photographer, but they at least need to be clear and mindful of who you're trying to reach. Okay, so um, so when we're talking about colors, so over here on the left hand side, you have your color wheel. Which for those of you who are visual artists, you probably already know what this is. But your color wheel is broken up into parts. So you have your warm tones over here on the right-hand side. You have your cool tones over here on the left-hand side. And when you look at colors across the color wheel, that's called complementary. And then outside of it, you also have your neutral colors, so like white, gray, black, brown, and the like. So, like with pretty much anything else, you know, colors especially, they are associated with certain types of feeling and energies and vibes and things of that nature. And so it's important that when you're choosing certain colors, say for your graphics, for social media, your digital ads, your logo, your website, that you're not just choosing random colors that, you know, look nice, but that they also make sense for who you're trying to reach, because you may unintentionally be attracting the wrong people or making the right people feel like it's, again, like it's not for them. So when we're talking about the cool colors over here on the left-hand side, some of the colors, some of the words and feelings that it's associated with is, you know, being calm, peace, also corporate. So for example, you'll notice like LinkedIn and many other similar sites of that nature, especially like being here in the DMV area when you're looking at government websites and the like, a lot of them, if they're feeling really open, but a lot of them for the most part will use a lot of cool color palettes in conjunction with some neutral colors, because the cool color palettes, and similar to the neutral colors, are relatively neutral. They're also very calm. You know, going on that site, I don't feel aggressive or I don't feel like I'm being attacked. And so, you know, depending upon what you offer, what you're looking to do, you may want to look within that palette. So again, calm, peace, corporate, being fresh, clean, also modern, nature, and royalty, especially when we're talking about violet, is associated with the cool color palette. And then over on the right-hand side, we have the warm colors or the warm tones. And so when you're looking to evoke passion, energy, enthusiasm, new beginnings, or things that are tropical, you want to think more within this side of the color wheel. And then lastly, with the neutral colors, so the neutral colors are definitely things that you can couple with the cool color and the warm color palette. So if I'm trying to give off an idea of being very cool and calm and collective and maybe very earthy, then I may want to include a combination of the cool tones here and maybe a little bit of brown and white as well, depending upon you know, where you're using it at on your website or your social media profiles. And beyond that, overall neutral colors associated with sophistication, especially with black, mystery, also with black, cleanliness, being modern. In some cases, it can also be very dated. So it's important that, you know, again, you're not using too much of really any of these colors. It can also be with being reliable, corporate, grounded, and then earthy. So here's a couple of examples just to kind of further explain the different types of feelings or that you can evoke when using color in your graphics. So with the first graphic here on the left-hand side, this is from Smile Direct Club. And so they're using, for the most part, colors on the cool color palette in the color wheel. And so Smile Direct Club, they provide like retainers and other corrective products for teeth. And so since we're dealing with teeth, the body, health, naturally, of course, you want it to feel clean. You want it to feel also, because Smile Direct Club's audience, for the most part, or one of their audiences when it comes to their character profiles, is more on the millennial end. So using this palette not only comes off as being very clean, but also very modern as well, too. So over here in the middle, we have Pledge. So Pledge provides a lot of various cleaning products. So because they're trying to be fresh and clean and youthful and energetic, naturally they're going to gravitate more towards the warm colors, especially with yellow. And then lastly, we have this graphic for Hallman's Mayonnaise. And so for this one, this is actually for their, I think this is for their organic mayonnaise. And so kind of similar to these two as well, using a combination of the cool tone palette and a little bit of the warm, but more so of the cool. It makes it further evoke it being very clean and natural and good for you. All right, and then I'm gonna quickly skim through these for time. But just a couple other examples from a social media standpoint. So this is a post from Stab Mob. So they are a hair company based in Atlanta. Most of their audience is about 25 and up. They mostly cater to Black women. So we'll talk about this more in photos, but naturally, if you look on their account as well, of course, a lot of their photos and videos feature Black women, given who their audience is. And then from a visual and color standpoint, they use a lot of pink and black and white and more quote unquote feminine leaning colors. And then also in combination with the typography and things of that nature, also kind of giving a sense of I don't want to say royalty because that's not quite the right word, but there's, I guess for right now, we'll use it, a sense of royalty in the sense of kind of making it seem like, you know, if you buy hair from us, you're a step above the rest. And then lastly, another example, this is from Omnoir. So they focus on a lot of self-care centric articles and events and things of that nature. And so again, like using a lot like the neutral color palette and also even a little bit of the warm tones, you can evoke a earthy feeling, which is shown here through their graphic for one of their self-care events. Okay, so now going into text and fonts. So outside of choosing the right colors for your visual branding, so again, for the graphics for social media or anything outside of that, it's also important that you're cognizant about the typography and fonts that you're using, since just like colors, they also evoke certain types of feelings. All right, so I'm going to kind of skim through this, but when it comes to fonts, you essentially have them grouped in about 4 different categories. So you have like serif, sans serif, script, display, and modern. And again, depending upon who your audience is, who you're looking to reach, you're going to want to be mindful of the font that you're using. So like, for example, a lot of people always kind of joke when people use a font like when a lot of people are using like Times New Roman. Times New Roman for a very long time, you know, was the standard font when you're using a Word document. I think even like Google Docs for a while. And that type of font is many times associated with being dated and old. So if you're trying to reach a younger audience, or in general, you're trying to come up as very modern and unique, Times New Romans is probably not the font that you should be using. And instead, you're going to want to more so gravitate towards a sans serif and modern font. And when it comes to display and script, these are great fonts when you're thinking about like logos and titles and things of that nature, but you want to use them very sparingly because they can also be very hard to read. So like, for example, I wouldn't be using, especially this font down here at the bottom under display, like I wouldn't be using this, say if I'm making like a graphic for an event, that wouldn't be my primary font for the entire flyer, because one, you want to have a little bit of diversity so that people can differentiate between what is the title of the event, the date, the time, the location, but also because the curvilinear lines and the cursive make it hard to read. And when you're looking for fonts to use, so if you're using accounts like graphic content creation sites like Canva, they have fonts, of course. But beyond that, you can always check out Adobe Typekit, DeFont, Font Squirrel, and things of that nature when using fonts. Also, when you're choosing fonts, it's important that you choose fonts that say that they are for commercial use. You know, overall, some people will be like, if no one catches me, then it's good. But it's best you use a font that's for commercial use. And so if you're using like a free site like DeFont, you can always filter it for the 100% commercial use, because if you're using one that's just for personal and that author, that designer were to find your graphic or whatever it may be, or your website, and you're using their font without their permission, there are legal things that could happen with that. Okay, so again, as an example, like the importance of thinking about the fonts that you are using. So over here, like on the right-hand side are some logos that most of us are relatively familiar with and how they typically would look. And then over here on the left-hand side is what happens when you are changing those fonts and the feelings it creates. Like for example, over here you have Nike and Just Do It. And then on the left-hand side, you have Just Do It, but it's in Comic Sans, which gives us a much more youthful and comical type of energy to it, which if I'm a sports wear company that's trying to motivate people to, be whatever it is they're trying to be, this doesn't exactly cut it. And it kind of to some extent comes off like a joke. And then over here again with McDonald's, you have their typical font with the I'm loving it. It looks like probably like a Babos. And then over here you have on the left-hand side, it's more of a cursive font, which gives off a much more formal energy that's not really the type of feeling that McDonald's or the audience are trying to relate to, given that it's cheap fast food. And then beyond, of course, choosing the right types of fonts, you also want to think about typography. So typography is how the fonts are arranged on a page. And depending upon how they're arranged, they can, again, also further evoke certain types of feelings. And it can also create more diversity and interest in the graphics you're creating versus just simply having everything lined up at once. So like over here, you have with this graphic that says going far beyond, and by having them cut off the lower half of going far and beyond in an upward line, it kind of further, again, evokes the energy that's expressed in the text of going far beyond whatever it is. And then again, you can play with turning things on their side, also increasing the size of different fonts and the like to create importance and interest in that graphic. And so again, when it comes to typography, you want to think about hierarchy and size. Again, like with the event flyer example, your header and title should be a much different size than your body and detail text, so that people are able to quickly, especially like on Instagram, if I'm just scrolling through my feed and all I see is a bunch of font that's all the same size and all the same area, I'm not going to be able to quickly, within about 3 seconds or so, understand what's going on, because it's going to require my brain to think a little bit harder about what it is you're trying to explain to me. And then also, again, think a lot about spacing. So like over here at the bottom, I just kind of showed some spacing examples when it comes to using this 30% off sale and buy now. You want to be cognizant that it's not too close or too far away. So that, again, especially on social media and Instagram and Facebook, that I'm able to quickly understand what's going on without having to work 10 times harder to figure out what you're trying to say to me. And so here's two examples of just kind of thinking about typography. So over here on the left-hand side, this is a graphic for Target. And so because the importance is that they want folks to know that there's a 50% off sale, they've made the 50% off much larger in size in comparison to the buy one, get one and the all women's and men's sweaters. And then also to go deeper than that, there's a difference in color between the 50% off and the buy one, get one, and the women's, men's, and sweaters to add further importance. And then over here on the right-hand side, you have a graphic for Summit 21's LA weekend. And so again, going back to events, the time and date is much larger than the information for the title of the event and what's going on, to help folks quickly understand, you know, what it is that I should be attending, what time it is, and where to go. All right, so lastly, from a visual branding standpoint, especially with social media, it's important that your photos and videos are on point. You know, they don't have to be, you know, these high-end DSLR professional photographer photos, even though if you can, it's definitely ideal that you invest in a photographer or videographer down the road. However, starting out and for certain things, you know, you can still take great photos even on your phone or with a budget DSLR camera. And so, you know, when you're taking your DIY photos and videos, it's important that, you know, it's well lit, that it's well staged, and that, of course, you know, the photos and videos aren't blurry, that you're also keeping in mind when you're choosing models, if you do clothing and things of that nature, because that all of that is important in terms of resonating and reaching out to the right types of people. All right, so these two are examples of what not to do, especially when we're talking about product photography. So over here on the left-hand side, this is a photo of a bracelet. And so the issue that's here, the issue that arose here is it looks like they probably took this with natural light, probably near like a windowsill or something. And so they could probably edit this to make it look like something a little bit better, but there's a lot of issues in terms of shadow. And then also it's very cold. And if I'm trying to get people excited and interested in what I'm purchasing, I'm probably not going to buy this bracelet. And so over here on the right-hand side, another issue. So, you know, an issue that'll happen where maybe you're dealing with something like this, a lot of folks' natural instinct will be to then hit it with a lot of heavy flash. So whether it's with your phone or whatever camera you're using. And so the issue with using a lot of flash and not being mindful about it is you're going to create a lot of back shadows. It's going to come off overly warm. And then it's going to do similarly, you know, both unattractive, but now it makes it look a little bit, not a little bit, but it makes it look unprofessional. All right, and so then these are two examples of things that you should keep in mind, especially when you're doing product photos. So over here on the left-hand side, this is actually a photo that I took with my phone. And I'll show in a second how you can create something like this without having to have a lot of equipment. But, you know, again, especially since I'm shooting food especially, or anything, even over here on the right-hand side too, which we'll come to in a minute. But food especially, because you want it to look enticing. You want it to also look like it was made well. and that it isn't, you know, festering with bacteria and things of that nature. You want to make sure that lighting is incredibly important, that it's also well staged. So it's not like this awkward, really close up photo where I can't really tell what the food is. Um, and then even over here, again, on the right-hand side, this is for a product shot for skincare. And skincare, you know, again, even going back like to the smile graphic, both of those things are things that we, you know, we want to feel clean and healthy and the like. So you also want to make sure you're keeping lighting in mind. And when you're also doing things like flat lays, as shown here, you want to incorporate pieces into your product photos and props that further evoke that cleanliness and also further resonate with who your audience is, and even in some cases, what's in the product as well. All right, so when it comes to shooting with people, here are some things that, you know, you shouldn't do and should keep in mind when you're dealing with that. So over here on the left-hand side with this first photo, outside of it being super blurry, the other issue that's here is that they faced the subject in front of the window, which is what's creating that shadow over this person's face and body. So to reduce that, you're going to want to flip it. So instead of the subject being in front of the window, you want the subject facing the window, and then the photographer, their back is facing the window and then shooting the subject, which will allow you to see them clearly, and then you won't have issues with this. And this is just, again, just an issue of it not being very stable. You know, when you're taking photos, like for me, I can be a little shaky at times, so I try to use a tripod as much as possible. You can get really cheap, especially tripods if you're just using your phone. You can get cheap tripods from like Five Below has like a couple of ones that you can get that I see occasionally. Kind of have to hunt for them, but Five Below has some, of course, like Target and the like, and they're usually at no more than about like $20. Um, and then the issue over here with this photo, it's very similar to the overly warm photo that was of that juice bottle, is that it's way too warm in the photo. A lot of it also is coming from the fact they're using fluorescent light or whatever it is that's this lamp in the room. And so, you know, you want to make sure, and a lot of it, to some extent, you can edit in post. You want to make sure that you're being mindful of the white balance, the balance between it being too cold or too warm, because that also, too, again, you know, going back to colors, evokes certain types of feelings. Okay. And then here are some examples of some better examples of what you should do when you're taking photos of people. So again, making sure that the subject is well lit. If you're doing it outside, you know, keeping in mind shadows and things of that nature. They don't have a lot of props on this table, but if you're using props or if you're doing like a lifestyle type of photo, you know, make sure to be mindful of how you're arranging the space so it doesn't look all over the place and there's a sense of order to what's going on, and that it's also keeping the focal point in mind. Um, so like alternatively, like let's say if there was a bunch of stuff going on in the background, I would want to move this model to a different area, because otherwise my eyes are going to automatically go to what's behind them versus focusing on them, which I'm assuming the subject is them and probably this head wrap. Well, yeah, because it's the wrap life. So this head wrap. Okay, so for those of you that are looking to do DIY photos, especially right now with COVID and everybody, you know, quarantining in quarantine. So these are some things that you can, you don't need all of it. And I'll kind of like explain, I guess, importance over the others for those of you that are just kind of starting out. Um, so I would definitely down the road look at getting a backdrop and clamps. You can get like this brand actually in particular, Emart. I want to say it's about like $45 for about a 10-foot backdrop. And then, or I mean, alternatively, what you can also do is before you get the backdrop, if you just simply get fabric, or you get like a muslin backdrop or a paper backdrop. You can also just tape it to the wall or staple it or whatever it may be, but just kind of keeping that in mind. You'll also need ring clips, especially if you're using the backdrop and a fabric backdrop or just fabric in general you're getting like from the fabric store or like a bed sheet or something. You're going to want to get a reflector. A reflector and also poster board, what they do is they allow you to bounce the light in a way that ensures that you're not having shadows or to help bring more warmth to a particular photo. Painter's tape, I mean, you should just have it in general, especially when you're dealing with poster board, so that you're not getting paper residue over everything. You're going to also want to get a lighting of some sort. For those of you that are doing like uh, videos, especially if it's just you or even like maybe one or two models, you can for the most part get away with just having like a ring light or an LED light that can hook onto the top of a DSLR camera, or they even have LED lights that are made for smartphones. Alternatively, which many times you can usually get a kit that includes these, but you'll want to look at getting soft boxes, or at least for right now, soft boxes or a reflective shoot-through umbrella and a strobe light. This is probably definitely more so a down the line option, but starting out, I would definitely look at like a ring light or an LED light. And soft boxes, you can usually get them pretty cheap too. So going back to when I was talking about, I think the food example that I had shown with my phone. Um, how you can create photos using natural light that where the lighting is even and it doesn't require you having like a whole ton of equipment, especially for those of you that like shooting predominantly with natural light. You're going to want to make sure that you have two poster boards, so two foam core poster boards. You can get them like from the Dollar Tree. And then you're also going to need a Bristol or the flimsier poster boards that you can also get from the Dollar Tree. And then make sure that you have painter's tape. And that painter's tape will allow you to prop up the Bristol board in a way that creates a mini cyc of sorts. And so what that does is when you're getting ready to edit your photo, either on your phone or your computer, it reduces having to remove the demarcation lines between the starting of the foam core board and then the starting of the Bristol board on your ground or your floor, so to speak, on the table. And when you're doing flat lays, there's a variety of things that you can use outside of course, just white Bristol board. You can use, like if you have like wood floors, using that, brass, construction paper. Um, you can get scrap wood and different particles from hardware stores for usually pretty cheap, to help incorporate different elements and textures that are able to further evoke whatever it is you're trying to sell that'll resonate with your audience. And so again, like you can use, if you have wood floors, using that, cutting boards, slate, construction paper, fabric. There's like so many options when it comes to flat lay photos and product photos. Like definitely do not feel limited. And when you're choosing these things, like everything else, also make sure you're keeping your audience in mind. So if you say like are selling skincare that is all natural, and then also going deeper than that, your audience are of course not just folks that enjoy all natural products, but try to live a relatively sustainable and earth conscious lifestyle. You want to think about incorporating wood, plants, lighter, airier fabrics to help with showing that. And then depending on the product, like let's say you have a lotion or something that includes maybe like lavender. You may want to include like some pieces of lavender in those photos as well. All right, so when it comes to editing your photos, these are a couple of apps that I recommend checking out. My favorite, I don't know if it's, I think it's Visco, VSCO, I don't know, but Visco is a great app. It is free at a basic level, or you can pay, I think I pay like $20 a year. And so what that does is it gives me access to more filters. And then also, this may be available in the free version, but I believe it's only in the paid. It also allows me to edit videos too. And I can't edit sound or things of this nature, but I can edit in terms of like color grading and the like. Also, you have Adobe Photoshop Express, which is free. Yeah, which is free. Adobe Lightroom Express. Facetune is $5. So I don't use Facetune a whole lot on people, except in a very nominal amount, because with Facetune you can end up turning someone into looking like subhuman. So
What is making you smile like that?
Facetune, you want to use it in a very limited nature, but I actually use Facetune more when I'm shooting products. So I'll use it to touch up certain things, especially when I'm trying to do the white background product photos. With videos, you have Quick. There's also Adobe Premiere Clip, InShot, iMovie if you have an iPhone, and then there's also Snapseed. All right, so this last component in part 2, when we're talking about visuals and aesthetics and brand voices, understanding your marketing message and your brand voice. And so just like colors, photos, and videos, the tone of your copy and text is equally as important. So for example, if I'm a clothing company that caters to millennial moms that live in big cities, I may want to incorporate more like meme-like culture and the like within the tone of my copy to further resonate with them. And also, in general, with your marketing message, and we're talking about tone and copy, it's important that it also sounds like it's coming from you. You know, because for the most part, you know, you can lie and create a tone and a voice that is completely separate from who you are. However, the issue that comes about, especially if you start doing things that are face to face, or if you're doing things where you're eventually communicating with your customers, and there's a complete difference between who you are online versus who you are offline, it's going to create problems when you're trying to really create authentic long-term relationship with your customers. So, you know, when you're thinking about your tone and message, especially if you're looking around at other people's accounts and trying to figure out how you are going to reach your audience, you can of course, you know, look at other folks for inspiration, but it needs to come within you. Because otherwise, after a while, like it's not going to come off authentically. And people are going to be able to tell after a while. So for examples, one of my favorite people when it comes to marketing and marketing message is Sassy Jones Boutique. So Sassy Jones Boutique is a Black-owned jewelry and clothing boutique based in Richmond. And so I, even if you have nothing to do with jewelry, I highly suggest that you follow this company on their Instagram and Facebook. They do a wonderful job when it comes to their marketing message, when it comes to the graphics and media and content that they create for their Instagram and Facebook. They also do a lot of really dope stuff when it comes to Facebook Live and Instagram Live. And I think they're really great, especially for creatives, in terms of trying to figure out how to leverage different types of content to reach your audience. So their target market for the most part are baby boomers, Black women who are baby boomers. They for the most part, from an income standpoint, are middle to upper class. A lot of them are in sororities. From a style standpoint, since they are a fashion company. So Sassy Jones Boutique, their big thing is they sell statement making jewelry. However, it's statement making jewelry targeted to folks that typically maybe wouldn't have those types of pieces in their wardrobe or would like to, but don't know how. And so Sassy Jones kind of creates that bridge for folks who are looking to dip their toes into louder or statement jewelry, but are looking for the guidance and reassurance that would come from, say, like a friend to help them figure out how to style it properly. And so their tone and message for many of their captions, their website is very auntie centric. So it's kind of like talking to your good Judy. And so you can see a lot of that when it comes to the captions for their Instagram, especially. So like even here with the Bengals, like a lot of like, you know, hey girl, what's good type of language, either in the videos itself or also in the captions. And then also in general, as you can see, you know, the focus of course is getting people to buy the product, but they're also mindful about articulating it in a way where it doesn't come off like, it doesn't just come off like, I want your money, please buy it now. But I'm also explaining to you why this should be a part of your life, you know, why my company, you know, is important in terms of your overall lifestyle. And, you know, how also, you know, you can style and incorporate what I sell into your wardrobe. And so again, this is Sassy Jones again. So another example of, again, you know, selling your product in a way where it's more than just saying buy now, by also kind of evoking a certain type of lifestyle in the captions and copy. All right, and so another example, this is Strong Black Lead. So this is the Instagram account. It's part of Netflix, but it's, especially when we're talking about target audience and character profiles, Strong Black Lead is targeted towards Netflix's character profile that's mostly Black millennials. And so the target market for Strong Black Lead, again, are Black millennials, working professionals, typically entry to mid-level jobs. Many of them mostly are living in larger cities. Travel enthusiasts, podcast listeners, things of that nature. And so the tone / message, given who they're reaching to, is very similar to, or at least they try to replicate or bring a lot of content from like Black Twitter, or what you would maybe see like in your friends group chat. So in a lot of that you can see here, like in this example of them announcing that She's Gotta Have It Too is on Netflix. And then also here, when they're talking about Beyonce's Homecoming, and how, again, you know, like Sassy Jones Boutique, this is a very different tone and message than the latter, but both of them do a really great job at selling folks without selling folks in a way that goes beyond just, in this case, like, you know, go onto our app and watch Homecoming. All right, so now that we've talked about target audience, brand voice, brand aesthetics, now we're going to focus on actually writing and planning out your marketing plan. So your marketing plan overall, it's a tool that allows you to strategically lay out all of the steps you're looking to take to reach your audience, which in this case, when we're talking about native social media, it's mostly going to be focusing on creating a content marketing plan, which I'll be talking about shortly. So within your marketing plan, which we've talked about some of this previously in part 1 and part 2, that includes thinking about market research, of course, your target market, your competition, visual branding, marketing message, your marketing strategies. So in this case right now, we're more so focusing on social media. Budget, I'm not going to talk about budget today since we're talking about native social media posting, but budget will be more so if you're looking to do advertising, and then also analytics. So after you've done all of this posting, especially on social media, when you're looking at your analytics, being able to read it and understand it in a way to determine whether or not, you know, what you're doing is making sense. I mean, of course, you know, if you're trying to sell products and people are buying your products, and it's probably making sense. But if you're noticing maybe a trend with the types of people that are buying your product, and maybe they don't necessarily resonate with who you originally thought was your audience, your analytics can help a bit with that. Right, so with market research, it's just a way for you to collect information about your target market, your industry, and your customers to better understand how to create success and leverage what you're doing. So the most three common ways are surveys, focus groups, and observations. Because we are we're focusing on social media today. I'm only going to talk more so about how you can use market research within the lens of social media, in particular Instagram. And so in this case, we'll be talking about following hashtags and how you can use that for market research. And then also how you can use IG stories for market research as well. So with hashtags on Instagram, so I I love this feature because it allows me to one, just kind of be aware of what's going on in general, but two, from a market research standpoint, and also a content standpoint too, I can see what other folks in my industry are doing and how, depending upon what it is, how I can leverage that within my business. So when it comes to the hashtags you should follow, of course, you want to choose hashtags that are, niche to what you're doing. Um, so if you're so for example, I'll use myself because I do clothing. I can follow the fashion hashtag, but I'm going to probably get everything in between. And a lot of it is not going to probably be very relevant to what I particularly focus on. But since I focus on size inclusive clothing, and especially those that are 1X and up, I more so would be interested in following the hashtag like plus size fashion, plus size clothing, and things of that like, because that'll allow me to better understand what's going on within that industry versus me just following fashion, which might be cute, but I'm probably going to get a whole lot of stuff that just has nothing to do with what I'm trying to offer. And then also, like from a local standpoint, following local hashtags that are focused towards your industry. So like a creative DC, like there's also like BYT things, or even like Black creatives or Blavity or things of the nature, depending upon what it is, where you're located. I would also follow some of the local hashtags that are catered to your industry. So maybe if you're in like a caterer, so then it might also be like if you're in the DMV and you're a caterer, like DMV foodies, DMV caterers, of course. So be mindful about the hashtags you follow, so you're also not wasting time. So doing this, as I mentioned, it allows you to see what others are doing in your industry, especially from a content standpoint. So for example, if you're a makeup artist, you may notice from following certain hashtags that time-lapse makeup tutorial videos are getting a lot of traction as of late on Instagram and seem to be really popular, especially with accounts that have a similar audience to yours. So what you might want to do, because you're noticing that trend, is start incorporating time-lapse makeup videos in your content as well. Okay, so with IG stories, IG stories is a really great, it's great for a lot of things, but from a market research standpoint, it allows you to really help you in terms of getting feedback, especially if you're looking to launch a new product or service or collection. You can use that as a way to get feedback and also kind of as a pre-marketing for that particular item. And so you can do that through questions and polls. So, it may be something where it's like, I'll use myself. So maybe I'm like about to drop like a dress, but I can't choose between either the dress being in magenta or black. And so I may do an IG story either with like the question or like the poll meter, asking folks, like, what do y'all think of this? Magenta or black? What do you think is better? Should I do both? And so what that does is it allows me to understand very easily, what are people interested in, And then also, again, from a marketing standpoint, it allows people to start getting excited about that product I'm about to be dropping. And then also, I forgot to mention this too, it also helps with engagement as well. Since when you're doing the polls and the questions, you're allowing your customers and followers to be engaged in the process. So it makes them even more interested in wanting to purchase whatever you're offering, because they feel like, you know, they've had an impact in that particular item. All right, so outside of market research, and kind of like I mentioned a little bit with that following the hashtags, you also want to think about your competition. And I more so like to call competition like leaders, so to speak, in your industry. So I think a lot of times when we think about competition, we think that it means it's someone that I need to jump over and destroy, especially from a capitalistic standpoint. But competition or leaders or other folks in your industry, the reason for why you should be aware of them and why you should be knowledgeable of who these folks are is because it allows you, again, to better understand how the types of content you can create, how to better leverage what you're doing to your audience, and also overall, you know, be aware of the other people who are out there doing things similar to you, whether from a collaboration standpoint or beyond that. And so, you know, again, like the point of following or being aware of who your competition is not so you can just steal, kill, and destroy, but more so you can better understand how to leverage your business from a pricing standpoint, a marketing standpoint, visuals, products, services, messaging, and then also potentially a collaboration standpoint too. Since, you know, we all can't service the entire world, so there may be a point where the both of you can leverage what you're doing to reach a larger audience. So one of my favorite features, and this is on Facebook, when it comes to understanding your competition or just in general kind of understanding the current trends in your industry from a marketing and business standpoint, is the Facebook ads library. So to get to it, you'll go to facebook.com/ads/library. And so what you'll be able to see when you get on there, and I'll actually go right now to show you in real time. Okay, so the Facebook ads library allows you to look at, for the most part, unless they forgot what it's like a very niche grouping of people you can't see, but for the most part, you can pretty much look up any type of business that is currently running ads on Facebook ads library. The reasoning for it really was more so from a election standpoint, to make sure that candidates were being ethical about who they were marketing to, but it also helps from a competition standpoint and a market research standpoint too. So if I were to look up like Target, I'm pretty sure they have ads running right now. I can now see all of the ads that are running or inactive or were currently running on Facebook and also Instagram as well. And so with that, it allows me to have a better understanding when it comes to like copy ideas, content ideas, especially when I'm doing digital ads and just native social media posting too. Even like, let me try Whole Foods. They don't have anything running, but yeah, if they have ads that are currently running, you'll be able to see them. And again, they have to have ads that are running. In some cases, depending upon your industry, the folks that are similar to what you're doing, they may not be having ads on right now. But it is a nice, you know, service to have in terms of looking at what else is around. Okay, so, all right, so yeah, Facebook ads library, it's great for helping with creating a better copy, determining, you know, different types of content ideas, and also even, especially when it comes to in the fall when we're getting closer to Cyber Monday and Black Friday. Also, how to better leverage offers and deals that you'd like to provide to your audience. And also beyond that too, if you, and again, they would have to be running ads, but what I'll many times do is I'll start clicking on the websites of people that I feel are within a similar audience to mine. And if they're running ads and if they're doing also retargeting, I'll start getting all of their ads in my feeds. And so that's another thing you can also kind of keep in mind and play with. So next, focusing on your marketing strategy. So there's a variety of things that you can do overall. Of course, social media, email, digital ads, mailers, flyers, events, and other offline and online things. For the sake of today, I'm going to be focusing solely on social media. And so when it comes to social media, you don't need to be on everything. So you don't have to have a Facebook, a Twitter, an Instagram, a LinkedIn, a Tumblr, a Pinterest. I don't know what else, but like you don't need to have it all. One, because it's not even humanly possible unless you have a very large team to be managing all those accounts authentically. And then also, depending upon the accountant and who your audience is, your audience may not be very active on those social media accounts anyways. So ideally, choose about like 1 to 3 platforms that your target audience is on and make sense of what you offer. Because again, like any other business, these platforms have their own target audiences too. So like mentioned earlier with Pinterest is really more so catered towards folks that are food, DIY things, travel, also like style and fashion, especially style tips. So if you're say like home decor too. So if you, I don't know, if you were like, if you detail cars, you probably should not be on Pinterest. But a better platform for you might be like Facebook or Instagram, since Facebook and Instagram overall are pretty general for the most part. But again, you want to keep in mind, who the platform is catered to and what you offer. So like another platform too, like if you provide creative services like photography, graphic design, videography, copywriting, Facebook and Instagram might be nice, but you also should probably consider LinkedIn too. Since folks who are on LinkedIn, for the most part, their intended purpose of being on that platform is for networking and finding other people that they can use from a service standpoint or who are in other similar industries of their own or industries they would like to be in. All right, so with social media and really just marketing period, but with social media marketing, it's important that you're focusing, of course, on the content marketing plan that I'll talk about in a second, and then also the difference between hard selling and soft selling. So hard selling is the act of being rather direct when reaching your potential customers and clients. So hard selling is essentially being like buy now, shop today, click the link in my bio, swipe up, whatever it may be. And so in social media, that can be seen through posting flyers for your event, offering a sale or a discount saying that something is 50% off, or again, telling people to click the link in your bio to purchase. So an example of a company that does hard selling a lot with their social media strategy, they also do soft selling too. They do that more so in terms of their brand ambassadors that they have wearing their product. But on their primary pages, they do a lot of hard selling. And so as you can see over here in their caption, comparing it to say Sassy Jones Boutique, where Sassy Jones focuses a lot on more so soft selling. So explaining to folks why what they offer should be a part of their lifestyle. Fashion Nova, typically in like a lot of other similar companies to Fashion Nova, you'll more so kind of get like, search for this tube dress, buy it now, and maybe like, this would be cute on you. go to our website. So it's directly, so really, you know, all they're really caring about is, we want your money, please buy this. Like, which hard selling is not bad, but if you're trying to create authentic and genuine relations with folks, you need to have a combination of hard and soft selling. Which for Fashion Nova, again, their soft selling is more so with their brand ambassadors that they give product to. So again, soft selling is the act of building relations with customers and clients. That can be seen in a couple of ways. So whether it's with tips, questions, video series, doing a podcast, blogs, micro blogs, behind the scene content, and so on and so forth. And so again, with Sassy Jones Boutique, a lot of their content is very soft selling. So like over here in this video, they show their customers how they can style and rock one of their turban head wraps, which is a way for them to, again, they're selling the head wrap in a way, but in a way where they're explaining how you can incorporate it into your wardrobe. And then also, lastly, beyond that, you also need to make sure you have content diversity. Meaning that there should be a healthy amount of varying types of media. So whether it's photos, videos, text, of course, is soft selling, hard selling. Doing this creates interest on your feed. It allows you to tap into the various components of your audience. And it also allows you to create a deeper relationship with those followers and customers. So an example of content diversity, looking at Omnivoir's profile. So as you can kind of see here, they do a combination. They have a lot of text. There's also video, photos. They do a couple of questions as well here and there, asking their followers, you know, what they think about certain subjects. And then another example here with Kelly Augustine B. Kelly Augustine, they are a blogger. And so for them, their content diversity is a combination of mostly like photos, videos, also doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff on their Instagram story, and then periodically quotes and things of that nature via tweet screenshots. So when you're creating content for your social media, these are a couple of sites that you can keep in mind. So there's Canva, Adobe Spark, Snappa, Easel, Preview, Mixed Captions is great for creating captions over your videos, and that's important not only from an ADA standpoint, but also because a lot of times when people are scrolling on their feed, their sound is not on. So if I can kind of read what it is that you're saying and then turn it on when I would like to, or maybe, you know, they might be somewhere where they can't play with sound, having the captions over your videos is very important. And mixed captions, you can create the captions for either, you can also do it for your, they have a template for story videos too. So for the sake of time, I was gonna open up the content calendar and go over it. I think it's linked somewhere in the chat. In the link in the chat, it's a free download for y'all to use, and it's a Google Sheet template. So you want to make sure you copy it so it saves into your Drive account. And so overall, the content calendar, what's inside of it, and I have a video within the download that talks about it in more detail. But it's just a great template, a starting template in terms of kind of mapping out what you're looking to post each day. Typically, I will schedule content, or I'll think about the content I want to have about like 2 or so weeks in advance. So it also encourages me to be more frequent. Specifically, when I don't do this, then there might be instances where you don't see me post for about a week. And that's because, you know, life happens, I get busy, but having the content calendar allows me to create more consistency. So there should be a link in the chat for y'all to download that. And then when it comes to scheduling that content, there are a lot of really great scheduling platforms out there. I believe Facebook Creator Studio is still available and it's free. So that's a already embedded option. You have to do it on your computer to schedule your content out in advance. But beyond that, like I use Later. Later, I pay like, I want to say like $60 for a year. And Later allows me to schedule content out a year in advance if I wanted to. And I can also schedule out content for my stories too. And there's also Buffer, Hootsuite, Loomly, Skeed, Sprout. And all of them, you can schedule content for Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and I believe LinkedIn is on Hootsuite too. So I'm going to quickly skim through this. So lastly, once you started, of course, posting more frequently on your social media accounts, you also want to look at your analytics too. And so for the sake of time, I'm more so going to focus on IG analytics since the language is very similar for Facebook, Twitter, and many other platforms. So when you're looking at the analytics on your Instagram account, so whether it's for the overall profile or for that particular post, also the only way that you'll be able to see this is making sure that you have a business Instagram and a Facebook business profile. And if you don't have a business Instagram, you can just go into your settings and switch it over to a business profile. Doing that allows you to get these analytics and insight, which is helpful, again, when it comes to planning out your posts and overall marketing efforts. And so when you're looking at your analytics, you really want to make sure amongst all of this that you're keeping in mind, especially when it comes to like website clicks, impression, reach, and then when you're looking at particular posts, how many folks are saving certain things. And the reasoning for this is because people can like up your posts all day long, which is great, but if folks are not going to your website, if they're not buying certain things, then there's a disconnect. And let's say, for example, you post something and it gets a lot of likes, it gets a decent amount of web clicks. And however, once they get to the website, folks are not buying. And there could be a variety of reasons for that. And so you'll want to couple the analytics of this with the analytics for your website. And what you may realize is either maybe there are broken links, maybe it's not clear in terms of understanding what it is that you're selling or how much it is. It may also be price, but using the analytics from your social media account and then also coupling it with your website if you're selling a product, service, or in general, if you're sending someone to your website, coupling those two things allow you to better understand how you may need to change or alter what you're posting, or whether or not you should keep continuing something in terms of content. So that is it. I know it was a little longer than I wanted to, but hopefully I was able to make things clear and it made sense. And so I'm trying to, I don't know, Malik, do I have time?
I'm muting myself, but I can't see myself either. I do want to say to Morgan, thank you so very much for your time today. This was excellent. Unfortunately, all we are out of time, so we're not able to get to the questions. But I do want to say a big thank you to Morgan. I learned a lot during this session.
Oh, yay. And I guess if any of it, because there's a lot of them, yeah, if any of y'all have any questions, you can always just shoot me an email. My email address, it's info@distinctlydc.com. Oh, it sent it privately. That's not what I wanted to do.
Gotcha. I'm copying.
Okay. Oh, I'm glad y'all like it. But yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email. And yeah, and I can answer it in more detail.
Thank you, everyone.